Then in qualifying, Max goes and puts it on the front row.
Absolutely great job by him and the team for that first row.
Max gave us a hell of a spectacle.
Yeah, very eventful. Of course, I spun in corner 2.
Let's talk Isack. Of course, his race unravelled far earlier than it should have.
Playing with the wall the whole weekend with the limits.
I think in Formula One, sometimes you get to learn the easy way. In this case, we definitely learned the hard way.
Welcome back to Talking Ball, powered by Arbitrade. After a month away, we are back. We are in Miami, or should I say, Cal's in Miami. Unfortunately, I didn't get the invite. What's going on?
Mate, I'm out here living my best life in the 305, man. It's been an incredible week. And I would have loved to have you this with me, man. But unfortunately, the pleasure's been all mine.
Absolutely. How's the weather holding up, by the way? Of course, the race was moved forward 3 hours. Has it started tipping down yet?
No, so far it's still clear, and I know the crews, as they start packing air freight, are just praying that they can get it all closed up before the rain does come down, because we are expecting a little more at some point. But as we've seen today, it is an ever-changing situation. When I got out of my car this morning, honestly, I was about 50 feet away from being struck by lightning, and I made it down to the energy station, watched the rain come down for a few hours, and then, believe it or not, just like a little while after that, the sun was out. So it very much feels like a bit of an English summer at the moment.
That would have been a very, very different podcast. I didn't even think about that. Of course, when you're doing pack up, if it starts absolutely tipping down with rain, that must make it a lot more frustrating, I guess.
Mate, packing up in the rain is one of the worst possible things that can happen in your race weekend, because also when you get the air freight unpacked at the next race weekend and everything's gone in there wet, you can almost guarantee you are going to find mouldy items.
That sounds like a bit of a smelly job.
Yeah, I've got to be honest though, what the bigger worry is for the crews right now is that we don't get any more lightning, because as we know from Florida law, if there is any lightning, they will be ushered inside and have to seek shelter, and that will just slow them down. And one of the benefits of having an earlier race today is all those race crews are very much looking forward to getting out of here a little bit earlier and having a night out.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you will not be joining them. You'll have a nice early bedtime, I'm sure, Cal. And let's get into...
Bro, I'm 37, man.
He's got nothing to say to that. Let's get into car upgrades, shall we? Because I tell you what, we made some steps forward this weekend. Can we first go over 7 car upgrades listed? We had a front wing element and end plates, front wheel bodywork, inboard surfaces, side pod inlet, engine cover, floor, rear corner, rear wing. How do we as fans kind of dissect all of that? Is this as big a change to the car as it sounds?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And you can tell that visually, just looking at it compared to at the last race. And we've obviously had this 5-week hiatus, and looking at the car now, they almost look like completely different cars. I think the best way to process it is just to think of it as a package. And I know obviously teams declare certain elements and this and that and the other, but I think what we've come here with is an entire package. And all of these things have to work together. This is something they've been working on for a while. It was a bit of a schedule upgrade anyway. There are some more scheduled for the races coming forward. But yeah, I think the best way to sort of digest it is just look at it as a total package.
And obviously the race crew, whose job it is to put the car together and make sure it's working and reliable for that weekend, has that, do you think, been a big learning curve for them to get on top of such a big, singular upgrade? I can imagine when there's small, 1-2 components changing, you spread it out over numerous races. But when it's a big lump, right, here's 7 upgrades, get on board with that. Is that a challenge?
Look, I think from the mechanical side, it's probably not too bad in terms of, you have a drawing, you have an engineering drawing, and you know how to build stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is you're building. What I will say is when you have a huge package of like specifically bodywork updates, you have a very busy composites department. So it's been, to be honest, my one thing about things like this is it's always thoughts and prayers with composites technicians at a time like this.
Doing the hard work back at the factory. Love to see it. Right, before we get into the insights from both Max and Isack, let's briefly cover over, of course, a sprint weekend this time out. Much more positive notes after that extended FP1 90-minute session. And then, of course, going into sprint qualifying on Friday night. Did you feel that, even just after that FP1, Cal, that already the team had seen, right, hang on a second, we've found some big performance here?
it is always that thing about an FP1. Normally you'd say, well, you take them with a pinch of salt because you never know what other people are doing. I think when you come to a sprint weekend like this, and FP1 really is your only practice session, you do take a little bit more faith in it when you've had a good one. I went into the garage after sprint qualifying and I spoke to a few of the people in there, and I actually had a quick chat with GP even, and it seemed like straight away after that sprint qualifying they were happy that they were headed in the right direction. That's not to say that they haven't still had plenty to figure out, and certainly they did before the main race qualifying. They worked some stuff out clearly, but I think it was clear early on that the upgrade package was going in the direction that they wanted, and that obviously what they were expecting from it did come to fruition, so they can go and build on it from there.
And obviously Max spoke of some, rear axle troubles on Friday, and Isack struggling as well down the straights in particular. Bit of a scrappy sprint race for Max as well. That kind of sandwich between, was it Colapinto and Hamilton on the inside? Wasn't? Yeah, Lewis chucked one around the outside. Very bold move, scrappy. But what I would say, Cal, the thing that I came away from that race is Max finished within a second of George Russell in that sprint race, which I think, given the pace of the Mercedes they've demonstrated so far this season, that immediately was right. Okay, hang on, we're onto something here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a bit of a warning sign, wasn't it? I mean, firstly, watching Lewis and Max going toe to toe in the sprint race kind of gave me Jeddah 21 vibes. So I was truly enjoying that. But I think, like you said, and Max and Lewis, they lost a fair bit of time in that battle. So for Max to just finish just behind George, I think that was an early indicator that certainly things were going in the right direction.
Then, of course, Parc Ferme reopens. Changes can be made to cars, so you can never fully, it's not going to be a carbon copy sprint Saturday to race Sunday. And then in qualifying, Max goes and puts it on the front row, which I didn't see that coming. I don't know about you. Did the team see it coming?
Look, I don't know about the team. I think certainly what I'd seen from the sprint was that it was clear that the car was quite good in the long stints. I think the tyre deg was quite good compared to the cars around him. The overall pace was good in race pace. I think the interesting thing about quali was that, Max was the only one of the drivers that managed to improve on that last lap. And I think that bodes well. Because we're going to have other sessions like that where the track temperatures are sort of running away from you. So the fact that he still managed to find that little bit to go and put it on part one, let's be honest, pretty close to a Kimi Antonelli and a car that we didn't expect to be battling early on in this season. Absolutely great job by him and the team for that first row. I have to say it went down very, very well on our Red Bull Energy station down at turn 11.
I can imagine. Within 2/10 of Kimi Antonelli, a lot of the drivers struggling with the wind as well, very unpredictable. What's the wind been like there, Cal? Actually, we've heard a lot about that this weekend. How is it? Is it coming in gusts? Is it quite predictable? Is there a lot of it? Is there, how? Give us some contextualization to
I'm going to be honest with you. I've felt the breezes throughout the weekend. I can't say at any point it seemed like a massive amount of wind. I think what you got to remember about some of these street circuits is you get like a circulation effect when you've got these high walls and narrow circuits, and it's something that we see in places like Monaco, we see it in Singapore, and also in Azerbaijan, this sort of circulation of air around the circuit. I can't say that I noticed it being particularly windy or gusty, but I'm going to trust the drivers that they know a little bit better than me.
Or maybe it's just racing driver excuses, okay? I cannot confirm nor deny, okay? Maybe they're just making it up as they go along. I love it. But unfortunately, as much as, great performance from Max, we do have to address Isack's disqualification. He got it into Q3, but his car was deemed, it failed on a floorboard protruding 2 millimeters too far, which in the game of F1, 2 millimeters doesn't sound like much, but actually that is a pretty significant failure. So how does the team, Laurent spoke about this, post-qualifying, mistakes have been made, learnings needed to make sure this doesn't happen again. How does something like this happen, Cal, and what things can be put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again?
I mean, like you said, the first thing, as Laurent said, it's a mistake. We have to learn from it. I think in Formula One, sometimes you get to learn the easy way. In this case, we definitely learned the hard way. Now, talking to some of my mates in our composites department that we've had our thoughts and prayers with all week, is that it seems to me that it was one of those things that in this area of the floor, it's not something that we normally spend a great deal of time checking because it's nowhere near being legal or illegal. It's so far away from the legality box, as we like to call it, that it's not in the past, it's not been something we've looked at. And obviously this has been a new floor and some upgrades. And it kind of seems that perhaps that it's just gone overlooked, which is a real shame because, you know, like you said, it cost Isack quite dearly. But, you know, it's one of those things we've learned the hard way, you know, and as Laurent says, you have to put a process in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Exactly that. So, of course, a pit lane start was needed for Isack on Sunday. Took the opportunity to get a new energy store and control electronics as well. Now let's, you know, enough of us two. Let's listen to Max. Let's listen to Isack and see what they thought of their Sundays.
Yeah, very eventful. Of course, yeah, I spun in corner 2. So that was not ideal. Tried to minimize, of course, the time loss. And yeah, after that, of course, we opted to do a very early stop. But to be honest now, of course, easy to say after the race, but that hard tire was not really working for me. Just didn't really have good grip. And then, of course, it became quite painful to the end with the tires. I just had no grip anymore. Yeah, I tried my best, of course, to hang in there, but unfortunately, yeah, it was just not meant to be. But for sure, we picked up a bit of performance, so that's already really promising.
It was a good hit, but fortunately I'm all fine. It's just very disappointing. I had a very strong start to the race. We had so much space, and actually come back in the points was a lot easier than I anticipated. So that's why I'm also very gutted that we threw it all the way. I was very eager to make the next move and to move forward, and at the same time, I've been playing with the wall the whole weekend with the limit, and over 57 laps. You know, it's a lot, and that was not the right approach. The car is just simply faster, and even without putting anything together on my side and having a lot of difficulties to maximize everything, there was still very good pace and just points like very easily. So yeah, if I tidy things up like I did the last few weekends, I can be in the points a lot easier. Yeah, I'm in Montreal. I'm really looking forward to come back to racing. Obviously now it's already itching to get back to it because I'm very frustrated. But I think Montreal should suit us like it suited us here. So I'm looking forward to that.
Right, Max gave us a hell of a spectacle watching at home. Did you get that? What kind of view did you have of the track? Did you get to see, I guess, Max's spin for one? Because the clips have been pretty entertaining. Just this spinning Red Bull with this absolute stream of cars behind it is something to behold.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to see it firsthand. As I said, I was down at turn 11. But having watched the replays, I mean, the first thing is, well, you know, as we've seen so many times from Max, he is great at saving something like that when it's not gone right. But also in that situation, you kind of got to say fair play to all the other drivers on the grid for managing to avoid him. That could have been so much worse. Obviously, the result would have been very different had Max managed to make contact with any other driver. So really thankful that we managed to get through it and ultimately get a decent result at the end of all that.
And I'll tell you what, there was some aggressive moves from Max. That send on Liam, where of course he didn't gain the position, so Liam stayed ahead. The one on Science as well was a proper dive bomb late on the brakes. Science didn't like it, but it was legal because he kept it in track. Like, that was fun. I felt like Max was having as frustrating as it must have been to lose out on all those positions early doors. It felt like he was having fun pushing back through the field.
Honestly, I've got to say, I didn't necessarily expect to be saying this coming into Miami, but what I saw out there today has been the best racing that I have watched all season so far. Now, with Max, you know, some of those overtakes, they seemed bold and brave. I think one thing that I have noticed watching that car out on track all week is that it's been mighty on the brakes. Max all week has seemed to be able to go later than everyone else and get the car stopped. Obviously, he had his incident with Lewis where he went a little bit deep and ended up having to give that position back before later retaking it. But I think it's a real feature of the car that he can go late on the brakes. And, you know, with the Carlos one, I think he's going to look back at that and look at the replays and understand that there was no way he could leave a door like that open and not expect Max to try and walk through it. So, yeah, angry in the moment, but I think he'll look back on that and go, yeah, actually, I kind of had that one coming.
Yeah, many drivers have learned that lesson over the years. You can't give Max a sniff because he's going to take it. Also, you mentioned the kind of confidence on the brakes. I kind of noticed this even after FP1 where Max was speaking very positively, not even so much about the performance ceiling being massively higher. It has increased for sure, but just him feeling so much more comfortable in the car. It's a data point that's not as easy to measure as top speed or, you know, apex speed or whatever, but just Max felt a lot more at home in the car. And when he feels more at home, he can go for those on the edge overtakes where you're so close to locking a wheel, but you're not quite, and you're getting it done. You know, that's more of a grey area thing that must be harder for the team to understand. And that's where they've got to rely on, I guess, Max's feedback, and why Max is so valuable to this team, not just from, you know, his ability to race, but also to be a data point, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing. All of the sensors that you have on the car and all of the data that comes off the car needs interpretation, right? And, you know, Laurent said early in the year, the best sensor that you can have in the car is Max Verstappen. And that feedback is so, so important for you to actually understand the numbers that are coming out of those sensors each and every week. Data stream, it's not just one little bit here, one little bit there. It is a massive amount of data. So without that sort of actual real world feedback, it then becomes really hard to interpret. And when you talk about having, you know, two drivers that are giving the same feedback, that's when you start to gain confidence that you're heading in the right direction and you understand where the issues are and the limitations. So yeah, look, really important, the driver feedback. And talking of the confidence, that's one of the things that will make you go faster. It's not necessarily, like you said, that you've raised the complete ceiling of the car like drastically, but just giving drivers that faith that the car is going to behave the way they expect it. That's where a lot of the lap time will come from. I know, speaking to some of the guys after sprint qualifying, we were talking about the changes and this big upgrade package, and actually one of them said to me, they think that one of the best changes that they've made to the car is the way that the steering feels for Max. I think early on he had this feeling that it just wasn't responding the way that he wanted it to. And so now getting here and it actually just behaving, not necessarily like you can just turn the wheel and the car's going to grip and go, but just the predictability and him knowing that it's going to behave in the way he expects. And that confidence has clearly, you know, contributed to the improvement in pace.
Yeah, I imagine that's extra beneficial around. I mean, track temperatures, not so much today, but yesterday were like 50 degrees plus, which is absolutely barbaric. I do not do well in the heat. So
mate,
I don't know about you, Cal, but I'd have had a bad time.
I'm going to be honest, mate, it was a real struggle, you know. I was on the energy station. I'd had 4 or 5 vodka Red Bulls by this point. It was really up against it. It's been one of my toughest days of work in a very long time.
Tough. Just can we get some comments down below? Everyone, just our hearts are here for you, Cal. They really are. Right? Can we talk about this hard tyre? Because, you know, Max in his chat afterwards said, you know, the hard tyre wasn't really working for him. Obviously, taking that early stop under the safety car. Do you think there's anything else we maybe could have done, or do you feel like it was the right strategy? Given the situation, given he'd fallen down, it's worth rolling that dice, especially as we were expecting rain that never quite came.
You're kind of spot on there. I think in the situation we were in, taking the alternative route to everyone else was in my view, a really good choice. I think had you not taken that pit stop and just stayed out with everyone else, I think it would have been the unambitious choice. And I think if we'd done that, we would have just basically finished the race where we were at that point, right? The other thing, as you said, with the potential for rain, it kind of meant that if it had come, you know, it could have been the great equalizer. And now all of a sudden you're sat in P3 or, you know, at one point P1, and you're back on level footing with everyone else. So I think it was absolutely worth the risk. I think to just have stayed where we were would have been a really unambitious decision, and taking the alternate path, I think, was the right one.
I completely agree. Let's talk Isack. Of course, his race unravelled far earlier than it should have. Contact with the wall, turn 14, saw the end of his race. I mean, honestly, like a tough watch as a viewer, because he is so hard on himself, and I think it's his passion, it's fire, his determination that is such a strength. And I really hope, you know, if you see him, put an arm around him and give him the best from all the fans, because you could really see, like, that was a tough one. That was a really tough one to accept, and I just hope that he can push on, because actually his words post-race were pretty positive.
Yeah, look, I guess that's actually the most important part about it. It's not like Isack came and said, oh yeah, I struggled with this and struggled with that. Actually, his post-race interview, it's quite clear that the car itself he was really happy with. And, I know he said he'd been flirting with that wall all week, and ultimately he just went past the limit, compared to Max, obviously a relatively less experienced driver. These are just things you're going to learn. And look, I know Isack's always going to be his own biggest critic. He is hard on himself. These are just things that he'll iron out as he sort of hones his racecraft in F1. And like I said, the important bit about that interview with him post-race is that actually, I think he understands that we're on the right track with the car. It's a long season yet to go.
Absolutely. As I said, strong start, so much pace, very eager to make the next move. And it was that eagerness that just slightly got over the edge. But of course, now going into Canada, we've got two drivers now who seem much happier and much more comfortable in the performance of the car underneath them after all those upgrades. When you look at the characteristics of Sergei Villeneuve versus Miami, do you expect a similar challenge? Do you expect the drivers to, the things that have worked in Miami to also work in Canada? And how different do you think it will be?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some bits of that track that are fairly similar to here in Miami. Obviously, you've got a big braking zone into a hairpin, some relatively long straight sections of the track. I think actually, though, going back to this thing about confidence in the car, that will probably be the most important differentiator in Canada, because I think there's so many sections of that track, especially obviously the famous Wall of Champions, where confidence in the car as you turn it in is absolutely crucial in Canada. So I think the team are optimistic. I think it's a circuit that in the past we've had good races in. And I think, as a test bed, getting that done and signed off, if you like, here in Miami, that upgrade package, you'll go to Canada, you'll make use of the extra practice sessions that you have and see if we can put it all together.
Love it. Right, we've got a couple of questions from the community. If you want to get involved next time out, make sure you check out the Oracle Rebel Racing community tab on YouTube. And the first question from the Stolen Toast is, what is one setup change that looks small on paper but makes the biggest difference in driver confidence over a lap?
I think it's probably going to be to do with front end feel right now. And we spoke about Max and the steering of the RB22 and the confidence to turn it in, and it's going to behave how he expects it. Now you can do a lot of things for that, like all of these things, like for your front ride height, obviously your camber, the overall geometry of front suspension and the caster that you put on the car, all of these things affect that. So I think probably front end feel and the changes that you make to get the feeling that you're looking for, probably one of the biggest changes. I think you can always talk about things like ride height for the grip you're looking for and things like that. But actually, I think in terms of driver confidence and overall lap time as a result, that front end feels probably the most important thing.
Love it, love it. And finally, and we're going to hold you to this one, Cal, so pick your answer very carefully. From Sydney Sutrand, do you think the car has the potential to fight for podiums, considering Max's quality performance and the fact he finished P5 despite 50-lap old hard tyres?
On the back of today's result and today's performance, I think that's actually quite an easy question. I genuinely believe without that spin, Max could have been looking at second place today. I think he could have genuinely taken that fight to the cars ahead of him. So yeah, absolutely no doubt that, if we can continue on this trajectory, I'd like to think that we can fight for wins pretty soon.
He's confident, and I agree. I completely agree. That's not a bold take. I think absolutely we know how good Max is when he's got a car underneath him, that he can really attack the track and get the best out of himself. He knows he can do it. I mean, I can't believe we've got to wait another couple of weeks for Canada. It's kind of annoying. But look, Cal's final lap, what are we saying?
Look, I think it's a good takeaway from this to talk a little bit more about the actual total experience, right? All of my previous experience in this circuit was working in the garage, and I don't think you get the full appreciation of sort of the scale and the enjoyment that Formula One's bringing to the US right now. I've spent all weekend just talking to fans, engaging with them, and the atmosphere in Miami has not dropped one bit. We had 2 really hot days, Friday, Saturday. It's easy for people to get tired and had enough. And then this morning with the weather, again, it's easy to turn people away. And that hasn't happened at all. The atmosphere here has not dropped one bit throughout the whole weekend. People really enjoyed the racing. I think the racing's been great this weekend. And that's my final take, mate, that Miami GP really does deliver.
It's a vibe. I hope to get back out there in the coming years. Cal, pleasure as always. Don't have too much fun tonight. Pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, interact, share, tell your mum, tell your dad, whoever, tell your dog, right? Just get everyone involved with Talking Ball. Thank you again, of course, to Arbitrade for sponsoring this podcast, and we will see you in a few weeks' time for the Canadian Grand Prix.